You'd think after 10 years of marriage, you'd know the person sleeping next to you. I'm Jamie. I run a small restaurant called The Cozy Spoon in a sleepy little town just north of Savannah. I'm not flashy. I cook, I manage, and I love what I do. That's always been enough for me, at least. Mark, my husband, used to be the main earner. He worked in tech support, pulled long hours, and paid the bills without ever making a fuss. I never felt less than. We split expenses, lived simple, and made it work. But 2 years ago, I became the breadwinner. A food critic wrote a glowing review of my place, and from there, everything changed. The restaurant blew up, bookings soared, and my earnings tripled. Suddenly, I was the one bringing in real money. At first, Mark didn't say much. I still paid my share into our joint account, covered vacations, splurged on little things like better wine or last-minute concert tickets. I didn't lord it over him. I just wanted us to enjoy the good fortune. But the moment money shows up, so does entitlement. Enter Michelle, his sister. Michelle is what polite people call drifting. She floats from job to job, from one impulsive life plan to the next. Yoga instructor one week, crypto coach the next. No stability, no accountability. She used to show up to our place with a duffel bag and some vague emergency, always needing just a week on our couch. Those weeks turned into months more times than I can count. I tolerated it. Mark insisted, "She's family, Jamie." It became harder to swallow after my paychecks got bigger. Michelle started making offhand comments. "Must be nice, owning a restaurant and all. Wow, you wear real leather now? You're the boss now, huh? Bet that's fun." I brushed them off. Until one dinner, she turned to me, glass of wine in hand, smug smile on her face, and said, "So, since you're doing so well now, you should cover my rent. Just until I land something." I thought she was joking. Then Mark, my husband, laughed and said, "She's got a point. Family helps each other, right?" The fork I was holding didn't move. My pulse thudded in my ears. I forced a smile and nodded. "You're right. Family does help. I'll make some financial adjustments." They both grinned. But they didn't ask what kind of adjustment I had in mind. The next morning, while Mark was still snoring, I made my first call to the bank. Our setup was simple. We had a joint account for bills, and we each kept our own personal accounts. Mine, however, had slowly become the backbone of our shared life. Netflix? My card. His gym membership? My card. Groceries, Amazon Prime, even the car insurance, my card. So I made it stop. First, I removed Mark from any access to my personal account. Second, I reviewed every recurring expense and canceled everything I was personally covering that wasn't a strict necessity. Gym? Gone. Streaming services? Canceled. The card I co-signed for him years ago? I froze it. Then, I turned my attention to Michelle. Since she wanted help with rent, I gave her exactly what she asked for on my terms. I found a small studio on the edge of town. It was nothing special. Cheap, a little grimy, but livable. I paid the deposit, first and last month's rent. The lease signed in Michelle's name. I left her number with the landlord and made it clear not to involve me for anything else. By the time Mark returned home from work, the wheels were already spinning. He tried to log into Netflix after dinner. "Hey, did you forget to pay the bill?" he asked. I smiled over my wine glass. "Nope, just made a financial adjustment." The next day, his gym key fob didn't work. "Jamie, what the hell?" I sipped my coffee. "Adjustment." He got a call from the car insurance company later that night about a missed payment. That was the one that set him off. "Are you seriously doing this right now?" he snapped, waving his phone like I'd committed a crime. "I needed those services. You can't just cut me off." "You're right," I said calmly, "which is why I focused on what matters. Like rent for your sister." He blinked. "What do you mean?" I slid a piece of paper across the table, a printed lease agreement. Michelle's new address was at the top in bold. "She moves in next week." The silence was delicious. Then, "You didn't even ask me." I shrugged. "Did you ask me before volunteering my money? Before treating my income like your family's personal emergency fund?" Michelle, who had just walked in from the hallway, probably overheard the entire conversation, scooped up the paper. Her jaw slackened. This isn't funny." "Oh, it's not meant to be funny," I said, folding my arms. "It's meant to be a solution. You need a place, and now you have one. Fully paid. You're welcome." She looked to Mark for backup. "You're seriously okay with this?" But he wasn't answering. Because he'd realized something important, something he should have seen coming. This wasn't about the money anymore. This was about respect. And they had both run out of it. The fallout from the lease bomb was swift and honestly, kind of entertaining. Michelle lost it the moment she realized I wasn't bluffing. You can't just relocate me like I'm a stray dog, she shouted, waving the lease like it was a court summons. Mark was pacing behind her, jaw tight, eyes flicking between us like he was watching a tennis match he hadn't bet on but was somehow losing anyway. Jamie, you went too far, he snapped. Too far? Too far was Michelle demanding I fund her lifestyle because I'd finally hit a career high. Too far was my husband backing her up like I was a piggy bank with legs. No, this wasn't too far. This was balance. You both wanted fairness, I said, folding my arms. So I gave you exactly that. Michelle kept shaking her head, blonde curls flying like she was trying to shake off a nightmare. I'm not living in that place. Oh, you'll be fine, I said sweetly. It has heat, a door that locks, and a roof. A major upgrade from squatting in someone else's guest room. Mark's eyes burned holes through the lease. You didn't talk to me about this. We're supposed to be a team. Now I laughed. A team? You offered up my money without my consent. That's not a team move. That's a betrayal wrapped in entitlement. Michelle stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the glasses in the cabinet. Mark flinched like the sound personally offended him. I let the silence hang, tension thick and electric. Do you want to fix this? I asked. He hesitated. You mean move her back in? I blinked. Wow. Wrong answer. Mark rubbed his temples. Look, she's my sister. I can't just throw her out. You didn't seem to mind when she was throwing me under the bus. He said nothing, which told me everything. That night, I lay in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling while Mark snored beside me like he didn't have a single stress in the world. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Michelle again. Michelle, you're going to regret this. I promise. I blocked her. The next few days were like walking through a silent war zone. Mark sulked. Michelle texted him constantly, no doubt feeding him every sob story under the sun. I didn't ask. I didn't care. Instead, I met with my financial advisor. I wanted everything airtight, my assets locked, my accounts separated, every shared financial string carefully cut, because I had a feeling things were going to get worse before they got better. I was right. It was a Thursday when Mark came home later than usual, reeking of cheap beer and frustration. I was curled up on the couch with a glass of red wine and a stack of case notes from work. He stumbled in, dropped his keys too loudly into the bowl by the door, and stood there just watching me. You think you're so clever, don't you? He slurred. I glanced up. Clever enough to stop funding freeloaders. He chuckled darkly and staggered closer. You think you can embarrass me, shove my sister into some dump, and I'll just take it? I stood slowly, every nerve on high alert. You already did. You stood there and watched. He tilted his head. You think you're so powerful now. Big paycheck, big decisions. But you forgot one thing. What's that? His grin was slow and sinister. I still have access to the savings account. My stomach dropped. He'd never touched it before. We'd opened that account together years ago. It was the one thing we kept joint our future fund. Travel, maybe a house, someday a kid. At least, that's what I thought. I stepped forward, heart hammering. What did you do? Mark just shrugged. You want to play games, Jamie? Fine, I'll play too. I didn't sleep that night. The second he passed out, I grabbed my laptop and logged into the account. $17,000. Gone. Withdrawn in slow, sneaky amounts, $800 share, $1,200 steer, and it had started months ago, long before the Michelle mess. And just like that, I knew this wasn't about helping his sister. It never was. Mark had been planning something, hedging his bets, preparing for war long before I picked up my sword. The next morning, I sat across from my lawyer, told them everything, showed them screenshots, emails, bank logs. You think he's hiding assets? They asked. I know he is. And that's when I made my decision. I wasn't just cutting off the money. I was cutting him out. Mark came home that night to a neat envelope sitting on the kitchen counter. Inside, a formal separation notice, a list of the expenses he was now solely responsible for, and a schedule for removing his things. When he read it, he didn't yell. He just looked up, mouth slightly open, eyes dull. You're serious? He whispered. I nodded once. You'd burned 10 years for this? No, I said. You burned them. I'm just walking away from the ashes. After I handed Mark the envelope, the energy in our house shifted completely. No more subtle digs. No cold silence. It turned into a battlefield with clear sides. He didn't move out. Not yet. Claimed he needed time to sort things out, but he stopped pretending to be my partner. He was just a man occupying space I used to consider safe. A stranger with too much access. I moved fast. I had the locks to all my personal accounts changed. Canceled every last shared subscription. Transferred the remaining contents of my emergency fund to a newly secured credit union. I wasn't taking chances. Not with him. Mark's retaliation was petty, at first removing light bulbs from lamps, accidentally taking the garage remote with him to work, leaving dirty dishes piled high. Childish things like he was trying to get under my skin, but I didn't flinch. Then came the phone call. It was a Saturday morning. I was meeting my lawyer for coffee to go over final drafts when I noticed 2 missed calls from an unknown number. Then a voicemail. Hi, this is Courtney from Horizon Lending. We're just following up on the $12,000 loan application submitted under your name, Jamie Bennett. Please give us a call to confirm the details. My heart dropped like a stone. I called them back, voice calm but tight. I didn't apply for any loan. I asked for the application info. The rep hesitated, but I pushed harder. And that's when it happened again. The same email address. The same last 4 digits of my social security number. Only this time, the address listed was Michelle's. Oh, hell no. Mark hadn't just siphoned money from our joint savings. He was now trying to open credit lines under my name for his sister. I called my lawyer immediately. Within an hour, we had fraud alerts issued. I froze my credit, reported the unauthorized application, and then I called Mark. He didn't answer, so I waited. That night, when he finally stumbled in, smelling like cheap whiskey and bad decisions, I was ready. I met him at the door, arms crossed, phone in hand. Who the hell gave you permission to apply for loans in my name? I asked, voice steady. He blinked. What? Don't play dumb. Mark looked like a deer in headlights. Then he tried to laugh it off. Come on, Jamie. It was just paperwork. Michelle needed a little help. It wasn't like I actually got the loan. You committed fraud. I snapped. Jesus, you're so dramatic. I stared at him, stunned. You think this is a joke? You tried to tank my credit. You could have buried me financially again, all because your sister can't grow up? He rolled his eyes. You've always been a control freak. This is just you having a meltdown because you can't manipulate me anymore. Manipulate? Me? I took a step forward. You stole from me. You backed your leech of a sister. You lied. You cheated the system. And now you're trying to gaslight me? Mark's eyes darkened. At least she never made me feel small. Ah, there it was. You mean she never out-earned you? I said coldly. He didn't respond. Didn't have to. His silence told me everything. Mark hadn't just resented my raise, he'd hated what it meant. That I no longer needed him. That I was free in every sense. That he wasn't the provider anymore. And in his twisted little mind, that was betrayal. The next morning, I had him served at his job. I made sure it was at 9:02 a.m., right when the Monday team huddle started. Because if I was going to go down, I wasn't going alone. By Wednesday, Michelle had been hit with a cease and desist from my attorney and a demand to vacate the fraudulent address listed on the loan app. She tried to deny it, claimed she didn't know. I sent her a screenshot of the application with her signature. No response. Things snowballed fast. Mark tried to play the victim online, making vague Facebook posts about being punished for helping family and watching the woman you love turn into someone else. Michelle posted memes about strong women scaring weak men. Neither of them mentioned the fraud. Of course they didn't. They had underestimated me every step of the way, treated me like a quiet paycheck with a polite smile. Like I just keep saying yes out of love and obligation. They forgot who I was before I met them. A fighter, a strategist, a woman who had to scrap her way through everything in life to get where she was. Now they were learning the hard way. And yet I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. It was something colder, sharper, focused. That night, I poured myself a drink, lit a candle, and pulled up the final document on my laptop. The divorce petition was ready. My lawyer had secured proof of Mark's unauthorized withdrawals, the fake loan attempt, and every penny used without my consent. We had timelines, records, screenshots. The first signed it. Just as Mark walked through the door, holding takeout in a pitiful peace offering. Jamie, can we talk? I handed him the envelope. Sure, I said. Read that first. Mark held the envelope in his hand like it might burn him. His fingers hesitated at the seal, eyes flicking up to me with some desperate, wounded look that had long lost its power. "What's this?" he asked, though I knew he knew. "The end," I said, voice calm. He opened it, slowly, as if by dragging out the moment, he could somehow stall what he'd spent a year bringing on himself. Divorce papers. Neatly printed, every page tabbed, evidence attached. Financial records, proof of fraud, the fake loan tied to Michelle's name, every receipt laid out like a final exam he already knew he was going to fail. He didn't speak, not right away. He sat down, leafing through the pages. Every so often, I'd see his jaw tighten, his throat bob. He wasn't reading to understand. He was reading to assess damage. "You can't do this," he finally muttered. "I already have," I replied. "The process is in motion. You'll be hearing from the court within the week." He slapped the papers down. "You're overreacting. This is what people do when they have money, they support their family." "I didn't do anything that bad." "You committed fraud in my name," I said flatly. "You moved money behind my back. You supported another woman using our funds. And now you're trying to guilt me for not letting you burn the rest of my life to the ground?" He stood up suddenly, towering over me. "I needed a plan B. You got this raise and changed everything. You made me feel like less of a man." "No," I cut him off. "You felt like less of a man." "I didn't do that. Your ego did." Mark's face twisted, but he had nothing to say. Not anything useful, at least. "And Michelle," I added, "I hope she enjoyed the taste of money she didn't earn. Because the fraud investigation won't stop with you." He actually laughed, bitter and defensive. "You really think a judge is going to take your side? You're ruthless." "Cold." I smiled coldly, of course. "No," I said, "I'm just done playing the fool." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe he didn't. Maybe the version of me he had carefully manipulated for years, the one who stayed quiet, paid extra, and kept the peace, was finally gone. And she was never coming back. The weeks after that were a whirlwind. Mark tried damage control. First privately begging, texting me long, regretful messages, blaming the stress, Michelle, the job, the pandemic, anything but himself. Then publicly, painting me as the one who went nuclear over nothing. A few mutual friends reached out to check in, and I could tell from their tone who had hurt his side first. But I didn't bother correcting them. Truth has a way of crawling into the light, and I had already armed my lawyer with everything she needed. Meanwhile, I got busy rebuilding. I switched the locks, changed the passwords. I sold Mark's gaming rig, his favorite collector's edition vinyls, and that ridiculous espresso machine he bought and never learned to use. All of it went on Facebook Marketplace, and every dollar was funneled straight into a new account under my name. Fresh start. I even changed my number. Michelle, ever dramatic, tried to play the victim too. She posted vague rants online about betrayal and jealous women ruining families. Her little soap opera ended abruptly the day she received an official notice from the fraud investigation team. Funny how fast people quiet down when real consequences show up. And Mark? Well, poetic justice has a taste, and it's even sweeter than revenge. He tried to fight the divorce at first. Claimed he was entitled to half of everything, even though he'd been draining our savings behind my back for months. When he realized how much evidence I had, he folded fast. He agreed to the terms, signed the papers. No alimony, no access to my accounts, no contact. He moved in with a friend. At least, that's what I heard. Rumor had it, Michelle wouldn't even let him crash at her place once her landlord found out about the fraudulent loan. I didn't feel sorry for him. Not anymore. The day my divorce finalized, I didn't cry. I didn't throw a party either. I just went to a little cafe I'd always liked but never visited. Ordered a drink I used to consider too indulgent, and sat there watching the people around me. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt still. Not stuck, still. I realized I'd been carrying a weight for years, a weight disguised as loyalty, sacrifice, and family. It wasn't until I let it go that I realized how heavy it had been. I don't regret a single decision I made. Would I have loved for the man I married to be someone different? Sure, but I love myself more. And that's what saved me in the end. Mark called once, months later, left a voicemail. "I know you probably hate me," he said, voice small. "But I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I get it now. I just hope someday, maybe you'll forgive me." I didn't respond. He didn't need closure. I already had mine.